Hi, Mary, and hi, everybody watching. My name is Christy Splitt. I'm OLCV's Development Director, and for years I've had the pleasure of working with environmental advocates around the state, including executive directors of nonprofits like Mary Peveto. Mary actually there's a fun story of why she has a special meaning to me that she might not even know, and I'll tell quick. My now husband and I were colleagues at work, and she had organized a clean air hearing for the House Healthcare Committee in Northeast Portland in 2009, or in Northwest Portland. And Tom and I were emailing each other that day and about the panel. And we wound up making plans to hang out that night, and it wound up being like our first date. So our first date was around a Mary Peveto organized panel. So I think that's pretty cool. And I don't think I've ever told her that, but I just remembered it the other day. So, but Mary has been working on clean air issues and started out as an advocate and neighbor and formed a nonprofit with a bunch of neighbors and community members. And she's somebody that I really look up to as a working mom and as somebody who works in the environmental field. And when she raised her hand to run for office, I was so excited. So I'm really happy to share with all of our OLCV members Mary Peveto. And so I want to ask Mary, who's already doing so much great work in Oregon, what made you decide to run for Metro Council?
Well, thank you, Christy. Thank you for this opportunity. And yes, you have been a special relationship for me for a long time too. So, but thank you. I am running for Metro. When I started this work 10 years ago and discovered a major source potentially of toxic air pollution in my neighborhood, I pretty quickly learned this wasn't really a technical problem, it was a political problem. And I really learned quickly that we needed to figure out how to change that. And so while we also did, the work of the nonprofit was to educate communities and mobilize communities and get communities more engaged and involved and understand the problem and be part of the solutions. I also, started engaging very early on with decision makers and lawmakers and people, that were elected officials in our communities, and realized, while we had a lot of folks that really cared deeply, and there weren't necessarily a lot of champions on the issues of the environment and the climate like we need them in today's age. And so I'm running for Metro Council for two reasons. One, because I want to be one of those passionate, committed decision makers for the climate and for our environment. But I also believe in the unique opportunity that Metro presents for us to take real action on the climate, to take real action on some of our biggest problems at a regional scale, which is big enough to have an impact, but also local enough to be collaborative and to bring people together to make solutions together. So I think Metro the day this seat came up, it just hit me over the head that yes, this is where I can continue the work that I've been doing every day for 10 years from a different vantage point, from a decision-making vantage point, to be at the table and to be a real champion for the communities that I've worked side by side with to clean up our air and to fight the forces against the climate right now. And I can do this from this seat.
That's great. And that begs a question too. So I agree with you that Metro is a great place to get those things done and advocate on those issues that you care most about. But I think a lot of people don't know what Metro does. So can you tell us a little bit about what Metro does and why you think that nexus is there?
Yeah, Metro is a really interesting and unique entity in Oregon, and it's part of what makes us unique. It was actually born out of the same progressive ideas that we created the urban growth boundary of. We also created the nation's only elected regional body, and that's the Metro Council. And so to have a region-wide elected council that can really help and originally, help make decisions around the urban growth boundary, which really was never designed to be a no growth boundary, but a controlled and managed and strategic growth, bringing everybody together to make those decisions together. What Metro has also become what's part of its charter is to ensure the livability of the region-wide, equitably, and to really preserve what we love about our our region, the Portland metro region. And so Metro's in a unique position to take on really big issues where the region has some consensus around the problem statement and come up with solutions together. So recently that's moved into Metro moving into housing issues, huge unhoused population that is really, our urban centers are really imploding under the responsibility of. And then Metro came up with a very innovative and progressive idea to look at regional housing affordability region-wide and build it equitably region-wide. And so these are the kinds of things that Metro can bring to so many of our big issues around land use, transportation, the housing, our livability of our communities and the strength of our communities. And that's why I think it's also a very unique opportunity, because it's adaptable to what our communities need, and then we can bring the strength of a regional solution to it.
That's great. And I love too that you mentioned the word consensus. It's really hard to achieve, but when we can have agreement across leaders in the 3 counties that make up Metro, I think it is great that we have a place to get that work done. So thank you for sharing that information and telling everybody more about the mysterious agency that is Metro. So you've been in the trenches working on environmental issues for over a decade now, and I'm curious what lessons you think you will bring to the table that maybe nobody else can on the Metro Council.
Well, when you start with an issue that seems very local and very neighborhood scale, like I did with the issue of pollution in my Northwest neighborhood, but you realize that the solutions to that problem that are in your neighborhood are not at the neighborhood level. They're not even at your city government level. And actually, I learned very quickly that the closest elected official that had jurisdiction over our air regulations and our air quality was the governor. You realize you need to build a much bigger base of people that are interested in this, and representative community that is interested in this. And it didn't take me very long to also realize that the problem of air pollution, while it was in my neighborhood and industrial pollution basically was a flaw of our state's regulatory system that pretty much put you in a toxic hotspot if you were close to any industrial source of air pollution at a big scale. The reality was that our diesel pollution and other toxic air pollution was an issue that was really disproportionately impacting communities that were very different from mine, and communities of color in the Portland metro region and across the state. And so what I feel like I bring to this is not only the coalition building that I had to do and the relationship building that I authentically did, I think, to bring a broad base of support, but a true understanding and appreciation how we are in all this together, that we really all do better by raising everybody up, and that we really do better when we look at the people that are most impacted by a problem and we figure out the solutions that it would take to get them to have as clean, safe air. And that is I think what I would bring to this, is that anytime we look at an issue that's facing us, and a critical issue with high impact across the region, let's look at who it's impacting the most, and let's tailor those solutions and bring those voices to the table so we know we are authentically tailoring the solutions to that scale of the problem. And we're going to all do better, because the solutions are going to show efficacy. We're going to show progress against what seems like intractable problems. I mean, when I started with air, people didn't say it wasn't important. They just said it was too difficult. They didn't know where to start. And we started by looking at where it was impacting people most, and we figured out solutions to that, and we've made huge progress.
That's great. I love everything you just said, and I totally agree. The other thing I'll add is that you are tenacious. It took years to get the diesel bill passed, for example, and I just really appreciate that you don't give up. You do all that good work, you do it in the smart way, and you include everyone, and then you keep everybody together for the long haul, which is sometimes what it takes to get things done in Oregon politics.
It's really hard. And I know I'm just standing on the shoulders of so many people that have worked on this before me. So I get it. Sometimes we also just need to relieve each other every once in a while.
That's a good point. All right. So what's the first policy you'll either introduce yourself or take up as your #1 priority once you're on Metro Council?
Okay. I'm really excited about this because it's fun to think about what could you do? What could you really impact? And there are so many things that Metro is doing well right now, and it is exciting. And I do think I have to temper what I thought the first day I was running for this office with what is going to be the reality for anybody taking this office in January 2021. We don't know, and I do think that we're going to have to be thinking, being adaptive to the reality that post-crisis that we're coming out of. So that said, though, I'm really excited about the opportunity that we're seeing. You know, when I came into this position, the reason I wanted to run was because we have a climate crisis, and we still have a climate crisis today. And the biggest contribution to our climate crisis is transportation. And with Metro looking at a huge transportation package that potentially is on the ballot in November, what we're seeing today is not how we wanted to get there, but we're actually seeing the types of reductions that we need to face the climate crisis. So I'm really excited day one to figure out, how do we rebuild without recreating that? How do we look at what we've done the hard part. I mean, we've all doing the really, really hard part right now, and we have less cars on the road, and that's the key to meeting our climate goals. So how do we rebuild without recreating? How do we give people viable options that make public transportation or not using their car an attractive alternative when we all get back to work, or when the economy starts working? There's a lot of things that I was very excited about, seeing as potential tools of implementation towards that. I'd love to see, California recently has implemented region-wide air quality networks that really give very finite information about air quality on the ground. And it helps you make decision-making, because it can make you see the really localized where the bottlenecks of pollution are happening and how they relate to the transportation and other elements. I'd love to see us get that implemented. I know it's a line item in the transportation package. I have to say, there's another piece of Metro policy that I think doesn't get enough attention, and it's our waste management system. And I would love to see us kind of reboot and reconvene a conversation about how we're managing waste in the region. It's a massive environmental impact for us. It's impact on land use, it's an impact on livability, and it's an impact on our environment through wastewater and stormwater issues. I would love to see us reboot and reconvene a great group of stakeholders to really talk about, how can we revolutionize waste management where we get back to the principle of reducing waste and not putting an overemphasis on recycling that is feeding a system that's kind of broken. And I think that we need to, it needs to be part of the puzzle, but we really need to look at waste, our waste management system. And I'm very excited. That's a bread and butter issue that Metro does. They have incredible competency and skill. And I don't think there's been enough emphasis on that. And I think we're seeing it. We're seeing the problems downstream on that issue.
Yeah, I think that's a great issue too, and one that really does have an impact on climate change, in addition to toxics too. And I think, for what it's worth, when I worked in the legislature more, or back in the day, I guess now, that was like my favorite issue too. I even served on like a work group about waste management. So I love that you brought that up. And there are some super smart people at Metro that are going to be ready to dig in. And I think the political will too. I think there's lots of people that want the resources to use less stuff right here in the Metro region. So I'm really glad to hear you bring that up. Great. And the other thing that I wanted to ask you about, and you actually brought this up a little bit, is that you've done such a great job of building diverse coalitions in my work with you. It's something that you were talking about and doing even before I think a lot of others that we work with in the environmental committee or community. You were a leader there and an influencer, I think. And so thank you for that. But I also just wanted to ask how you plan to continue that commitment at Metro to having a diverse table of decision makers on issues.
Metro does an amazing job at convening, and I think that the opportunity to convene, continue to convene diverse folks, and I do think that the air quality issue brings a unique responsibility to keep a lens focused on the diverse communities that are impacted by the issue. And so I will continue the relationships I have, and we'll try and bring them together into Metro decision making, and have that opportunity to keep having those conversations about, especially on air quality. Again, air quality, I mean, you're very kind to say that, but it was obvious to me when I started on air quality issues that what we were really talking about was public health. And public health is people's lives. And that it didn't take very long to see the intersections with the environment and the issues on air quality and the environmental justice or injustice issues, because the people most impacted were not only most impacted in terms of exposure, but they were most impacted in terms, certainly in terms of agency and power to influence decision makers. And so that is what I want to continue to do, is bring voices into, the diverse voices into our realm of decision makers, that people are hearing this. And I will say, I think this is a place where Metro can do better, and I hope to bring in. I think I've been to a lot of Metro meetings, I've been to hearings. I'm very impressed with the deliberation and the leadership of council, and I'm incredibly impressed with the competency of staff. But I still think that they're a little bit isolated from the community voices, and that they need to, we need to find a healthier and more productive way to bring community voices in. Metro also has, and this position particularly, has an opportunity to give back. The waste transfer station that's in Northwest Portland services one of the biggest community grant programs that Metro has, the Central Enhancement Grant Program. And that's a really big opportunity for Metro to reinvest in community initiatives. And that's also a really good opportunity for Metro to hear about what is important to the community and bring those up and then fund them. So I'm very excited about how we can do this. I think Metro does need to bring, more visibly more voices in, and I think there's an opportunity to convene that.
Thank you. And these were all such good points, and I feel like my kid turning up was kind of distracting, but isn't that just life these days? For those of you who just saw my daughter Delaney, she came to report that there is a big bug flying around our house, and she needs candy, so she's gonna go talk to her dad downstairs about it. But all a problem we solved while Mary was holding forth on such an important issue, so thank you.
Another thing women bring to this is a cool demeanor of multitasking that doesn't.
I think I did shove her out of the picture though. Like I was like, stop. But anyway, it's like the natural instinct of a working mom to be like, I don't have kids, I'm a professional. But the reality is, especially now, we're moms. Mary's also a mom, so she gets it. I know a lot of you do too.
At least you can have her dragged out of the room by the nanny through the back door.
Oh, right. I have a friend whose Zoom background, a single guy, he has the Zoom background of that guy with the water coming in. He has like the picture of her as his background for Zoom calls, which I think is
That's awesome.
Pretty genius. All right, so I think we have time for one question. And I think that what I'm gonna go with is actually just asking, given what we just had happen in our conversation, what's it been like running for office during the stay-at-home order? And are there positives and negatives? Like, how does it feel as a candidate?
Well, you know what? This is the first time I've ever run for office. So what do I know? This is like how it feels like to run for office. And clearly you have to, learn to reach out to people in a different way. I'm not walking around and knocking on doors and getting to meet people face to face. And I'm kind of sad about that because I actually thought I'd really enjoy that. I thought I've done it for other candidates, and I've always really enjoyed the interactions on the doorstep. But we're figuring out new ways. I mean, there's a lot. Everybody's adapting, and I'm finding that people are as interested and craving interaction as ever. Mm-hmm. And so I'm finding that it's still working to be, connecting with folks through the phone. Some voters really like text. We're writing postcards by hand, old-fashioned postcards, sending them through the USPS. And we're going to be out there and doing these kinds of video opportunities as much as we can. All my house parties, I had 8 house parties cancel around March 13th that were gonna, that I already had on the schedule for the next couple of weeks. And so we switched to Zoom parties, and it's fun and it's working, and people's spirits are up and they want interaction. So I think it's still, campaigning is about connecting with people. It's about putting some values and meaning behind a name that's going to be on their ballot. And so we're adapting to that. And actually, it's been going pretty well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. If you want me to do some postcards, let me know. That's like my dream, is just campaigns asking me to do postcards.
Nice.
All right. Well, I'm sure that everyone that's an OLCV member watching this really enjoyed getting to know you better, Mary. And I just want to thank you for making the time to share a little bit about why you're running and make it obvious why OLCV is so excited to support you. Ballots are going to be due by May 19th. Right? And they're getting mailed this is going to be posted online on May 1st. So people will be getting their ballots as they have the opportunity to see this video. So if you have any questions, when this interview ends, we're going to put up a screen that's going to have the link that you can actually see behind Mary right now, but a link to her website so that you can learn more about her campaign and how you can support her. Sign up to help if you can. You can donate money if you want. We're also hoping, of course, you'll support OLCV too, but we just want to also share support for our great candidates. So thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your campaign.
Thank you so much. This has been a great opportunity. OLCV, you are the bedrock of Oregonians' values, and you carry the water on the environment like nobody else. And couldn't be here without you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well,